You all right? My name's Paul. I've got autism and I make random videos based on my version of autism and the way my head works. And I stick the videos on the internet in case you fancy giving them a watch. And I hope you're doing all right. I always do. Not too much to catch you up on waffle wise this week. I just feel a bit run down, to be honest. And I was going to talk to you about feeling run down. And then I thought, you know what? Why don't I just talk to you about health anxieties? Because I've always said, I've got health anxieties. That is not a mystery to me. I know I have. Um, and I just thought it would make sense to talk about them, sort of give my anxieties a voice. So I've got no script. I've got, nothing to really go off apart from I just want to talk about them because I do believe that being autistic also plays a big part in my health anxieties. Um, like for a simple example, phone calls, just getting through to the doctors. I can't do phone calls because of my autism. So, these there is tie-ins to having a health anxieties and autism. And I just want to try and unpick it and figure it out while I go through this, if you don't mind. Because as you know, I'm not here for the fun, happy, shiny, and friendly. I'm here for the trying to figure myself out along the way too, because that's all I ever want to do is try and figure out why I am the way I am. So I apologize. It's probably not going to be fun or silly or anything like that, but every now and again, I just need to have a good think because, well, let's just start. You might notice I've got a big spot next to the side of my nose. It's not a second nose trying to grow, it's actually a spot, but it is as big. And that's because I'm feeling run down. I actually, at the minute, touch wood, there we go. Not, I don't know what that ever does, but, I don't think I've got anything wrong, but I just feel run down. So, like a couple of weeks ago, like I honestly felt like I'd been to the gym and then on the way home from the gym decided to scale Mount Everest and then army crawl home. I just felt so sore. I really did. Like I felt like I had muscles aching in places that I didn't even know I had places. I was just so achy. And I don't sleep well. But I was managing. I was exhausted in the day. I was going to bed. I was falling asleep straight away. And I was practically sleeping all the way through to the next morning. That doesn't happen ever. But it did like a couple of weeks ago. I just was aching and I was sleeping really well, but I was awake and then I was exhausted, all day. And I'm thinking, oh no, what's going on? I haven't got it now. I'm back to not sleeping and I'm not aching. But it's weird. And when something kicks in, it just has my mind racing like, oh no, what's wrong? Always trying to figure out what's wrong with me. And, now I feel a little bit run down. My throat's a bit sore and I've got these spots appearing. And I don't know. I don't know what's going on. But it's no good for you when you've got health anxieties and weird things just happen. And one of the things I've learned from doing this channel and talking with people who live in America, for example, the speed. I know there's a thing where people mock every now and again, and it's like, yeah, but you've got to pay for your healthcare over in America, and ours comes out of our tax, so we have free healthcare. It's like, whoa, the conversation as I've been having with American people, it's much better to pay for it. Like I can't get appointments, but I'll try and remember that and try and get into that as I go through. But I think it's important for me to realize where my health anxieties came from. And I genuinely believe they're tied into when my best friend passed away when he was 32. He died of an aggressive illness, which he shouldn't have had. And, it was very difficult when, you get that news that, that there's nothing more they can do. And when that's someone you care about so deeply and you've got a great connection with them and they're your best friend for a reason, it's very hard. I think I've told you before, but I was waking up in the middle of the night for the bathroom, and I'd be sort of coming round while I was in the bathroom, and then the realization had hit me like a ton of bricks that, he's not gonna be here for much longer. And then I'd think, well, oh no, what if he's got up for the bathroom and he comes around and he has the realization that he's not going to be here for much longer too? And then I wouldn't sleep for the rest of the night because that would just eat me up alive thinking of it. And it was horrible. And, so there was a lot of things involved there with, him being my best friend and, him going through an illness that people shouldn't have at 32 years old. And, so during the time when he was given bad news that it wasn't something that could be treated anymore, up to the day he passed away, I got ill. Like I'd done a diet and I'd lost, like I was sitting at around 17 and a half stone. And then I got to about 15 stone, I don't know, 4 or 5 or something. And then through the stress of, when I was eating normally, the stress of the last couple of weeks, I'd lost another stone, and I had illness. I had this pain in my side, and it was so painful. And I was determined, like when he passes, there is absolutely nothing on the face of this earth that will stop me showing my respect and saying goodbye. To attend the funeral, and I'd been asked as one of the people to carry his coffin, and I didn't take that request with a pinch of salt. That mattered to me, and that was the birth of my health anxieties because then I had this pain in my side, and it didn't subside, it didn't go. So it was like, oh, okay, well, what sort of pain doesn't go that's in your side? And then like Google is not the answer. Google is the worst thing to exist when you have health anxieties because every time I get ill, I always go on Google, I try and match up the symptoms, and I should have died about 200 times by now. It's just a horrible place because it goes right for the jugular where there might be a lot of other reasons for what's wrong. And, I was typing in the issues for here and I was reading what it potentially could be. And that made me panic and that had me scared. And, that went on for 2 or 3 years with this pain in my side. And I had ultrasounds, I had MRIs, and this is what people need to understand is health anxieties are real. They are so real because I'm petrified of needles, yet I had a needle in my arm so they could put the dye through my system so it would go through the areas it needed to, and at one point they weren't going to be able to do it because I was that nervous. My veins had retracted and they could not get the needle in a vein. And I was like, no, you have to keep trying. I don't care how painful this is going to get. I don't care which arm. I don't care where on my body, but I can't walk away and come back and do this again. And I even went, I've mentioned it before, but I went and I had a camera inserted in a place men or anyone really should have, men have got something, a camera between my legs to go up and look into my stomach. Now, if health anxieties were just a silly little thing, I would never have done that. The recovery from that was probably one of the worst pains I have ever felt on earth. I had to be knocked out for that because there was no way I could be awake and know something was doing that. No chance. And, that went on for years, 2 or 3 years that went on for. My life was on hold, I couldn't focus on anything else. I was just so in the zone of something is wrong. And the longer this goes on, the less chance I've got of it being treatable. And it ended up being nothing explainable. 2 or 3 years of debilitating pain in my side, feeling winded, feeling like I had a stitch, feeling like someone had punched me in my ribs. Every time I tried to bend down, it would, make you recoil because you just get this sharp pain that I'd go through. And it was never pain, it was always discomfort. It was just discomfort all the time. And I didn't know what it was, but the doctors couldn't figure out what it was. And, my favorite doctor, he basically after the MRI said, right, I can't tell you what it is, but I can tell you what it isn't. And it's none of the things you're fearful of. It's not a cancer. It's not a tumor. It's not a. And he went through all the list of basically fatal things that I was petrified of. Um, and that helped. The pain eventually subsided, which to me, and again, Doctor Google, I was convinced it was fibromyalgia, because when I was trying to find the answer for what this pain could be and what it could be related to, there was this thing there, and I would go down everything it could be. I would copy and paste it, and I would want to see all the symptoms and where is it from? Is it something I've done? And and I read about fibromyalgia, and I read that it can be brought on by the death of a loved one. And of course, I loved my best friend. And he was my best friend. We would see each other every Saturday selflessly for no reason whatsoever. No one understood why we got together just to walk and talk because we got nothing out of it apart from that. And I loved the fact that nobody understood that because it shows how selfish everybody else was. You had to be getting something out of it rather than just spending time with your friend. So I read that and I was thinking, well, that's got to be it. I've had the MRIs, I've had the ultrasounds, I've had the camera put up where you shouldn't. No one can find anything whatsoever, but I have a pain that is unexplainable, that is causing me a lot of problem. But I came away with no answer. So I had my own version of an answer, which was fibromyalgia, but my doctors would not listen to that as a potential consideration. Which bothers me because if it is that, I get recurring random pains throughout my body, which are not explainable. I had this tiredness I've told you a couple of weeks ago, and these muscle aches, and now they're gone. Sometimes they can last for a long time, sometimes they go. But I haven't done anything to cause them, but I end up with these pains and these issues, and my doctors won't entertain fibromyalgia as a reason, and they don't give me reasons because I'm at their mercy. It's not good. I even had shakes, and I still shake now, but they're not as bad as they were, where they were quite uncontrollable. And I got put under a neurologist. I went for a head scan, and then they just sort of disappeared. And then phoned me about 2 years later and just said, "You've got an appointment today. Where are you?" Well, it would have been great to know I had an appointment, mate. You know. And then it was like, "All right, I'll get someone to be in touch." And that was a year ago. Okay, so there's still no answer for that. I just keep ending up in situations with no answer, which isn't good, again, because of Dr. Google telling me I'm going to die tomorrow, and for me, because of the health anxieties, it is always the worst case scenario. Like, this chair I've got, I know you're not allowed to slag brands off, but if you want to know a gaming chair you do not buy, which has got rave reviews, email me, I'll tell you. It is terrible. I've had nothing but issues with this chair. I get electric shocks off it every time I stand up. And it caused a problem with my backside, like with me being seated on it. It caused a lot of pain in certain areas that are connected down there. And again, I was convinced the pain was connected to something else. And in the end, I sat on a cushion for a while and the pain started getting a bit better. Like I've got this blanket behind me today, and this blanket was actually gifted to me by someone who watches my channel, and I'm super grateful for it because it's a handmade blanket. And and now I've got it behind me because I've got a pain in my back, which I'm convinced is linked to something else yet again. And this blanket is taking some of the pain away, but it's still there. It's just, but when I was looking for the issues from being seated, it was telling me issues with my again, lower area, and I'm putting two and two together and getting five and going, yeah, that's right, that's correct. Yeah, I feel that. I would line up 7 out of 10 of the symptoms and go, well, that's got to be it then. And it turned out it was none of those things. Honestly, it is not a good place to be in my head when I have something wrong. Since my best friend passed away, I probably have maybe at best had half a year where I haven't thought about my health, because every time something happens, I just always assume the worst. And one of the problems I think is the fact that it's so hard in England to get a doctor's appointment. So that worries you too, because the state of the NHS, and I want to say this right now, the people who do their day jobs will always have my respect. When it was COVID and people were outside clapping for the NHS at 8 p.m. on a Thursday, whenever it was, I wasn't, because I was thinking, well, what on earth is that going to do? These people who are doing their day jobs, they want pay that is acceptable. They want additional workers, and they want better conditions. So give it to them. I'm not going to go and clap outside because that's just ridiculous. And to this day, I still feel the same. The striking, the junior doctors are striking, saying we want fair pay. Like, yeah, give them the money. If they feel compensated, they're going to do a better job. They're going to care more. They're going to be more invested in you because they're not so worried about themselves and how they're going to survive. But the NHS is in such a state that, there's no prevention. It's all about, oh no, something has happened now. So let's see how we're going to treat it. And I don't like that, and when I try and get an appointment, like with my knee, I've been going on about my knee forever, because me and George, my dog, were playing in the garden a year ago. I hurt my knee. I didn't realize at the time. I came in, watched some TV, tried to stand up, couldn't. And for months, I couldn't walk the dog properly because he could have pulled me over because I had no support in my leg. I had lost all strength. And I go to the doctors, they give me physio. So they're trying to rehab something, they don't know what's wrong. The physio didn't take. And then, get back in touch, and they still were not overly invested in wanting to see me again. It was just give the physio a bit longer, which I did. Then I tried to get back in, and they were like, well, we've given you your physio, you mustn't have done it right. It's like, no, I did the physio. I did it above and beyond. I even managed to go for a mile walk every day in agony, but I still did it to try and help. And in the end, I had to lie to the doctors to get in because they just were refusing to see me about my knee. Like I'd done something wrong. So I lied and pretended I had an issue with something else. And when I got in front of a doctor, they were like, right, so, what's wrong with your arm, for example? And I was like, what? We're not here to talk about my arm. My knee. We need to talk about my knee. And that doctor was meant to refer me for an MRI scan and with the musculoskeletal team. And I gave it months, went back to the doctors because my knee got worse. And that doctor said the original referrals were never put through. And it's like, this is my life constantly on hold through health, through fear of health, through waiting for other people to do the right thing about my health when it's out of my hands. So it's not a case of just always going, oh, I wonder if this cold is COVID. I wonder if this headache is a brain tumor. I tripped over today. I wonder if it's the start of MS. It's not that. These are things. I mean, I think all those things too. I've got to be honest. But these are things that occupy your mind. They stop you doing anything else. It brings your mood down, all through health anxiety. And when you reach out for a doctor's help, the doctors don't help you either. It is a really, really bad situation to be in when you are anxious about your health. And I did get an outcome for my knee. I went for the MRI last week or the week before, and then I got a text message. So for those of you in America, that's how my doctor deals with me. I get a text message And it's just from my doctor going, the outcome of your MRI shows us you have a badly torn meniscus. Here is a guide. You also already have a musculoskeletal appointment booked. They will be in touch in the near future. Sort of best of luck, really. It was sort of, there was no plan made. So I click the guide, I read down this list, and it's like starts in blue, then it goes to green, amber, red, and then red and black, for how severe your tear is and what to do with it. And I'm reading down the list, and only when it got to the red and the red and black, the danger zone, did it start to make any sense about my leg. And in the red and black section, it was saying, if your leg is stiff for more than 30 minutes after you wake up, get yourself to accident and emergency. And I was reading it laughing because it was like, look, this has been a year and my leg has been stiff for a year. Never mind 30 minutes when I get up. I am walking around like a pirate. I'm walking with a stiff leg, hobbling around, having great difficulty doing the most simple things. I have to assess every step I take because of the pain in my knee. And it took a year to get to that outcome, battling with doctors to try and get through that door. And now I've got to wait for this undated appointment with a musculoskeletal team to then have to probably argue back with them that I need an operation and not to do more physio because the physio I did not work. This pain has not subsided. It only gets worse. Every now and again, it seems to just take the edge off, but then it'll come back with a vengeance and it'll grind, click, pop, snap, rub. Oh, it's horrible. Honestly, it is. And then, I was talking to someone I email with, and their partner had damaged their meniscus, and it was a sort of like a week process over in America where it was like, went to the doctors on the Monday, or had the scan on a Monday, determined it was a torn meniscus, had the operation on a Wednesday, the back on the feet with a cane, like on the Friday, and I'm like, how? That's exactly how it should be here as well, but it's not, and it just shows me how horrible it is to have health anxieties and be in this sort of system because I overthink things anyway. That's what an autistic brain does. It will take something. We have no autopilot. We don't get to coast through the day. We have a plan A to Z. We have a plan for a backup of a plan for a backup of a plan. We can't have unpreparedness. So our minds are constantly on overdrive. So then when we're trying to determine answers of what's wrong because we're autistic, and if you've got health anxieties as well, it then becomes a hyperfixation and we get so dialed in that we're just absorbing so much information so quickly whilst we're stressed and whilst we're bothered. We never get to turn our minds off. We lie in bed, we're stressing, we're worried, we're concerned, we're confused, we're wanting answers. It's just hard, is what I'm trying to get at. Being autistic and having health anxiety is a real drain, and the state of the NHS concerns me because there is no proactive checks and tests, like I can't have, like I would love like an annual physical, annual blood work. If I've got like I've got this pain in my back, I want the person in the room to go, should we order up an MRI then just to have a look at your back, see if there's anything wrong with it? But yes, please. But you have to fight tooth and nail. It's a battle every time. And I'm autistic. I either I'm the nicest guy on earth or I'm setting the world on fire. I don't have a middle ground. I don't have the bartering tools. I don't have the persuasion tools. I don't have the way to convince them to put me first. And, the squeaky wheel gets the attention and I don't squeak. So it's really difficult, and I rely on other people to make my phone calls for things like doctor's appointments. So it's depending on them and when they're free and when they're not stressed and, trying to just worm my way in and go, you couldn't try and get me an appointment, could you? Because I can't do it myself. Because again, in England, or my doctors especially, You phone at 8 a.m. every morning, and I don't get through till 9:15. And when someone finally answers, they go, "There are no more appointments left. Try again tomorrow." And then that process repeats and repeats and repeats and repeats. And in the end, you give up. It's like, this is my health, you know? And I'm anxious and I'm autistic and I can't do half the things other people can who are not autistic when it comes to this. So, long story short, what I'm basically now considering is private healthcare. I've got to miraculously find this money every month when everything's gone through the roof. It's only because I've had a pay uplift and my car allowance has been uplifted and I'll be going on to my proficiency pay that I can think about it. But I've got to consider private healthcare because I want proactive checks done on my health. And I'm getting older. Being autistic is harder the older I get. The battles I used to be able to fight, I don't have the energy for anymore. So now it is all about trying to find the path of least resistance that is going to bring me the most peace, that is going to let me sleep at night. And I've been looking at the private healthcare and it's like 24/7 virtual consultations whenever you want them. It's like you're giving me appointments. I can't even get one. I think I've told you before, I went to my GP and I had laryngitis. I had no voice. And I passed a piece of paper to the receptionist saying I need an appointment. And they were like, "No, sorry, love, we don't take walk ins. You've got a phone." How can I phone when I've got no voice? I'm just tired of arguing with people. Even if it's an anxiety, it's real to me. And if we need to work through that, we need to work through that. But, there's some things that are real, like my knee. I finally got an answer, but the process continues. And even if I did get private healthcare, I can't do anything about my knee for the next 2 years. But I just want answers. I want timely answers. I want to be considered as a human being whose health matters. And unfortunately, the only way to get that in England now is to pay. And that's horrible because that's the route they're pushing you down. I already don't have much free money as it is once I've got paid after paying house bills and things like that. But now I've got to consider it. I've got to see how I can get there. Even if I get all my answers and take all my results and go back to the NHS. But even with this fibromyalgia, this pain in my side, I need a doctor to listen to me. Because when you're anxious, that's what you need, is someone to hear you. Because they are real to me. And this pain still comes back. Like I said, I was aching 2 weeks ago with every muscle in my body. I was asleep for the night and more exhausted than I've ever been the day after. Sorry about that. Just gone on a bit of a rant, a bit of a moan, a bit of a sulk, which is very like me, I know. But health anxieties are real. So even if you can't relate to mine, hopefully, if you're autistic, you can at least understand with your anxieties how difficult, especially in England, it is to try and converse this to doctors in 9-minute appointments and trying to convince people that you're actually unwell. Even if it's mental, we're unwell. We need to at least have someone to listen to us just for 5 minutes. And then with the autism, the pain we feel versus the pain other people feel, there needs to be all these considerations. So yeah, I've got to, for my own peace of mind, part with another chunk of money I don't have to at least attempt to consider private healthcare. Because otherwise I'm going to send myself crazy. And if I do, the NHS won't do nothing about that either, will they? 'Cause it'll take them 5 years to figure out I've turned into a nut job. But anyway, my friends, thanks for listening. Thanks for letting me moan. Thanks for letting me get that out. And until next time, thanks for watching and keep smiling.